Welcome to day 2 of World Telemedia. My name is Tim Green. I'm a mobile industry journalist and an occasional analyst for Juniper Research. And this is today's first session on direct carrier billing. And it's presented by Nick Lane, who is Mobile Insight Analyst for Mobilesquared. And nobody knows more about direct carrier billing than Nick, and he will fight anyone who thinks they do. And that's a promise. And to prove how much he knows, he's going to present some new research on the market. And with that, over to you, Nick.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Good morning, everybody. It's a slight change to the program in terms of looking at the whole PRS marketplace. So for the next few minutes, going to really focus on carrier billing, and then I'll just have a couple of slides at the end looking at the VAS market, or what we need to do as an industry to create these VAS figures. So I'm going to talk about direct carrier billing, market revenue projections. This is our view based on our ongoing research into the marketplace. So a little bit about us. We provide definitive data and insight on the mobile and tech industry. You can see the companies that we work with, and we also believe that we provide very accurate data and forecasts, and we don't hype. We don't see the point in hyping up things for the sake of hyping up data. So, first things first. Go past that. So these are our forecasts for carrier billing. This is based on the top 50 markets where primarily a majority of carrier billing activity takes place. This year we expect the market to be worth just under $14 billion. And by the end of 2022, we expect the market to be worth $32 billion. Asia will account for 2/3 of that this year, and it will drop down to about 61% in 2022. I think one thing that we need to clarify here is this is an emerging market, and there are lots of different figures out there. There's lots of different big numbers out there, some of which don't really add up. So, for example, last year, there was data going around saying that the Japanese and South Korean market were worth $25 billion together, with Japan generating $15 billion, South Korea $10 billion. We know from our ongoing research this isn't true. The market is considerably lower than that. As you can see, the fact that our global forecasts are less than $15 billion anyway. In terms of Google, we believe that Google is generating through carrier billing somewhere in the region of around $2.5 to $3 billion annually. So it's still one of the biggest contributors right now, if not the biggest. But one thing that we haven't factored in these forecasts and these numbers here is Amazon. And we're trying to get numbers on Amazon, but for example, Amazon in the Japanese marketplace is absolutely flying. We believe that spend via carrier billing in Japan is anything between $5 and $10 billion right now. Big differential there, but we don't know what that figure is. If we did know what that figure was, this is what the market would probably look like. So again, this is based on carrier billing forecasts with Japan and Amazon accounting for about $5 billion spend just on Amazon right now in Japan. So the market could potentially be worth just under $19 billion. And then based on that growth, the market could rise up to about $40 billion. So a couple of factors that are driving carrier billing right now. One is the time to market. One of the issues with carrier billing is that it takes ages to create. We're at a carrier billing conference in London a couple of weeks ago, and the discussion that we had there between Google and Microsoft, and the outcome of the discussion is that in theory, as an industry, we should be targeting from initial discussion and negotiations all the way down to commercial deployment, something in the region of 3 months. Right now, to get carrier billing activated, it is taking a long time. If you compare that to something like PayPal, which takes minutes to activate, that really should be the target. Certainly if carrier billing is really going to bloom and merchants, big and small, are going to really adopt carrier billing. Next thing is the revenue share. even in our research that we've been doing certainly extensively in the UK, for example, carriers are still looking to take anywhere between 8 to 10 or 8 to 12% on a revenue shared basis from per transaction. Again, our research suggests this figure, and also from the discussions at the event the other week, suggests that this figure should come down to somewhere around 5% based on volume for it to really kind of become an attractive proposition to merchants, big and small. The other thing that's really changing or driving carrier billing are the changing market dynamics, which I shall come on to. So just looking, for example, in the UK, and some of you who are at the PSA might have seen a couple of these next slides, their forum the other day. But I think it's interesting to share. So the total phone page services market in the UK in this financial year, so up to the end of April 2019, will be worth £580 million, not dollars, pounds. Now of that, operator billing accounts for 44% of these revenues. So the market we expect will be worth £253.5 million. What's really interesting about this is that where are those revenues coming from? So the blue at the top represents new services. So these new services are services that have started using carrier billing in the last 12 to 18 months. So within the UK, these are services around niche TV and video content. It could be books and magazines and subscriptions, kind of different kind of vouchering. It could be educational services. So these are really starting to grow. And the big one actually is around health and fitness apps. So that's really making quite a big impact. So as you can see from the last financial year, these new services accounted for 20% of total operator billing or DCB billing revenues in the UK with the existing services. And within that, that includes music, games, betting, gambling, to name a few. But for the next year, you can see that this is going to grow 86% new services to 27%. So that's really showing that the market is evolving. We are seeing an era of transition with new services, new merchants coming in, starting to use carrier billing. And this really is kind of a sea change, certainly in the UK, and we're starting to see this in other markets as well, where for obviously services such as ticketing are really starting to take off, and other purchase supply, vending machines, so on and so forth. I think also what's also key, some big names are coming in. Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, we're starting to see that everywhere. And again, really some of the services that we expect to drive carrier billing over the next few years, so books, magazines, TV, film, health, fitness, and education. Again, this is just really looking at the UK market, but what's happened over the last 12, 24 months is that as these new services emerge, merchants really start to look to use carrier billing, what's happening is that a lot of the old school premium rate services are becoming not so much obsolete, but almost forgotten as the industry really starts to look forward to kind of a new dawn, a clear, clean path where carrier billing really can attract the new merchants and really help to drive some of these revenues that we've shown. So what this means, again, this is what we've done here is really kind of trend forward our forecast based on what we've seen for the UK. But within 5 years, we expect these new services to generate somewhere in the region of 58% of total carrier billing revenues, which is huge, which again shows that there's a massive opportunity. Again, all we've really done is extrapolated that and applied that to our global forecast. But potentially what this shows is that new services globally are worth somewhere around 3.6 billion today, and by 2022 should be worth somewhere in the region of $18.5 billion, which again shows the market's changing. These new opportunities are opening up, and carrier billing is becoming very much an attractive proposition for merchants. But also beyond that, in terms of the kind of the broader ecosystem, looking at kind of the advertising, even affiliate marketing, this is going to create very much a burgeoning kind of DCB ecosystem, and it's going to really kind of fundamentally changed the market. So we kind of see that this year is something of a transitional year for the whole industry, and it's putting in the foundations now to make a very successful industry moving forward. So we were going to look at the value-added services market today, but we haven't got sufficient data in from industry, I'm afraid, to be able to do that. So what we'd like to do, and what we've been discussing, is working very much with World Telemedia to work with people and delegates attending to try and create a view, a very detailed view of what that VAS market is actually worth. Figures are right now in the marketplace vary from $100 billion up to $660 billion for the total global VAS market. So people don't have a clear view. What we'd like to do is work with you, the audience, and obviously other people attending, to really get a very clear picture of that. So if that's something that's of interest, I know the World Telemedia guys will be in touch with you to find out if that's of interest, if you want to take part. And then this time next year, hopefully we can be here sharing the findings and tell you exactly what this market's worth and even what this show's worth. Wouldn't that be interesting? Who knows? Anyway, that's me done. Thanks very much. Any questions?
Yeah, hi. So anyone got any questions? I have a few.
Brilliant.
So it's quite interesting because this market generally is driven by emerging markets where, you know, the received wisdom is that there's lower credit cards and debit card access in certain markets. That's why if they want digital products, they can buy them using this methodology. Your numbers indicated that Japan and Korea are very, right up front in this space. So why is that, do you think? Why do you think that Japan and Korea favoured DCB?
Well, Japan, I think two reasons. One, credit card penetration isn't that high in Japan, but also as a market, they've pretty much grown up with internet being on their mobile. So it wasn't so much PC migrated onto mobile, they went straight to mobile. So that's made a big difference. So they're used to making purchases anyway. So they also had iMode, which some people in the room may or may not be familiar with, which was the operator portal of NTT Docomo, which really kind of set the precedent almost globally for about 15 years ago in terms of how operators could monetize digital content via the phone. And I think on the back of that, people have just become accustomed to making purchases with their phone. That's really why it's become very successful. So I think the fact that Bango went in there and did a deal with Amazon to take Amazon via carrier billing came at a time when people are happy to make those purchases. Some of the research we found in terms of the consumer research, why people will like using carrier billing is because one of the main things is that it clears their bill every month. So unlike a credit card, if you don't pay it off, it'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then eventually you get a loan to pay it off. But anyway, that's my story. But with the phone, obviously you pay it off each month, and therefore people have control over their spending. So that again is one of the attractive points. So I think that's why Japan has kind of flourished.
And you made a strong point about new services and the growth and what we can expect from those. Could you just say a little bit more about what those new services are and why you see that growth? Is it a regulatory thing, or I mean, what's driving the move into these new markets?
So you've got, if you look, I guess to do that you've got to look back to go forward. So looking back, you had services, and these services still doing pretty well in other markets. You had things like adult, you had online competitions. But moving forward, there are services that people will pay money for on an ongoing basis. It's not just almost kind of a short-term relationship with that merchant or for the content, which pretty much a lot of the old school PRS, a lot of the services generally are. These are services that people see a longer-term relationship. So in health and fitness, these kind of apps, you pretty much sign up to a program that could be 8 to 12 weeks time in length, and you're paying anything between $8 and $10 to access that service either on a weekly or monthly basis, depending on who the merchant is. So it does vary, but there's an inherent value in the consumer's eyes on these services. And again, in terms of, for example, education, you can now sign up to a program to learn a language in 8 weeks. So again, it's kind of packaged up in a way that potentially you'll have a relationship with that merchant for 8 weeks and it's controlled. Whether it continues is obviously up to that consumer, but they should be more in control now. And also there's greater visibility, there's understanding in terms of business models from the internet, in terms of the monthly billing. And again, a lot of merchants are kind of migrating over to that.
I think we have some questions. Yeah.
Nick, in Japan, is it kind of physical goods that they're selling as well as digital?
Yes.
Is that sort of an anomaly that we just really focus on digital?
Yeah, no, it's physical as well.
So that would you kind of imply from that, if we kind of break down that barrier so we can sell physical goods in this country, that would then allow kind of a bigger growth to kind of come?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I can't even embellish on that. It's a yes. Can't hear you. No.
Hello.
Lessons on how to use a microphone are available.
In light of the fact that in the UK, the PSA issued £2 million worth of fines for erroneous subscription services that were clickjacking, basically. Does that sort of whiff of things being a bit sort of dodgy still pervade this? Or is that just really a UK problem?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
In the UK, the PSA
Yep.
fined 3 companies about £2 million altogether
Okay.
last week for clickjacking people on websites on their mobile phones where they signed them up to subscription services they knew nothing about. It's a common sort of thing, happened a lot in PRS in the UK over the years. Does that put people off using it, particularly in the UK? Or is it a wider problem across the whole sort of carrier billing market?
No, I think it was.
There's a whiff of controversy about it.
So if you start the UK, it has up to probably about 18 months ago, I'd say. But now I think most companies, most merchants, blue chips are looking forward. And I think there's almost a clear separation. So even when you refer to carrier billing, you kind of splitting out pay for it and carrier billing. So pay for it obviously is somewhat tarnished as a brand name. Operator billing doesn't have that association yet, whether it will get it or not. It shouldn't do, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen moving forward. Well, we do, obviously. We do the forecast. But I think something like pay for it has, because obviously any consumer that sees pay for it or on their bill will then do a Google search, pay for it. And up until about 18 months ago, number one, obviously it's scam. If you now do pay for it, it has a much cleaner search results in Google. So that in itself is changing. I think in terms of the regulation in the UK, in terms of making the flows more difficult, I guess changing the affiliate marketing opportunity around services like adult and online competitions have pretty much killed the market. But then in just saying that, when we did our research, a lot of the merchants that were involved in that, they've now looked for other opportunities, and they now believe that the market is actually more sustainable by looking at these new opportunities rather than just kind of prolonging the cash cow of old. So then you look at that moving forward, a lot of other countries are far more advanced in terms of carrier billing. Operators can sit down and create almost a national strategy, which makes it easier for each merchant to achieve cross-network functionality in terms of payment. Whereas in the UK, that's very difficult for the operator to sit down. So it's almost if you've got to negotiate on a operator by operator basis. To be fair, that is still happening in most markets, but some markets are a lot more efficient at achieving kind of the rollout than others. So I think, does that answer your question?
It certainly does.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Can I just bring you back to, you said about the 3-week activation time period. 3 months, sorry.
months.
It's even worse than I thought. So why is that, and what can be done to improve that?
Good question. Right now, it takes anything between 6 months and 18 months to activate carrier billing for a merchant. Way too slow. It's ridiculous. There's a lot of process involved. You've got a number of different regulators in Europe. Obviously, you've got things like PSD2 coming in, which is having an impact as well. Companies, a lot of the payment processors, the integrators, don't know whether they can just rely on PSD2. Do they need to go and get an e-money license? So these things are slowing things down. On top of that, operators almost have a proprietary network, internal payment platform. So you've got to do individual negotiations with each operator. So if you want to roll out across multiple markets, the chances are you'll have to negotiate with 20, 30 separate operators. I mean, even if you went to a group, operator group, you'd then, even if you do a deal via group, you'd then have to then go and negotiate with each individual country. So the whole process is fundamentally flawed right now and not geared at getting onboarding merchants at a rapid pace. Like I said, PayPal, you can do that in minutes. That is kind of the benchmark for carrier billing, regardless of the complexity. That's what it should be.
Isn't that why aggregators exist? So that you can just go to one Oku or Banco?
It is, but even then, if you're going to talk to aggregators, how quickly can you onboard a company? The target is 3 months. The target right now is 3 months. So depending on who you speak to, it could be 6 months, it could be 9 months, 12 months.
Right.
More needs to be done.
Okay. Any more questions? On that positive note of a 3-month activation period, we'll wind this session up. So it's quite short, but a good. Thank you very much for coming for the first session. The next session at 10 o'clock is also 10 o'clock. 11 o'clock is also on carrier billing, so you can get a second shot at it there. So thanks for attending. Thanks, Nick, and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.